So without further ado, I want to bring on our special guest. This is none other than Dr. Omerine Assay. Dr. Omerine is a board certified family medicine physician and certified emotional success coach. She's also a leadership expert with the John Maxwell team. As a leading authority on anxiety and wellness, she's been recognized in several articles, including Forbes magazine. Through You First Concierge, she offers customized solutions using a holistic approach to female executives and professional women over the age of 40. As a result, they are able to gain influence, income, and feel fantastic again. Dr. Omerine has close to a decade in practice of medicine and has treated over 20,000 patients. Her approach to medical care is to find the root cause of any illness. As a best-selling co-author and global speaker, Dr. Omerine delivers actionable and real-world strategies in a practical, fun, and engaging way. Her mantra is thrive regardless. You can connect with Dr. Omerine, MD, on all social media platforms or go to www.dromerinemd.com. I am so excited to have her. Without further ado, let's go ahead and bring this lovely lady on. Dr. Omerine, welcome.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me today.
It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. I love this emotional success coach thing.
I was just about to mention that. I love it.
Tell us about it.
Well, before I define that, I want to define what a coach is.
Okay.
Because I know that we have a lot of coaches now, but there is a difference between a coach and a trainer. So a coach is someone who helps you discover what is already within you. Basically helps you rediscover and increase your awareness of yourself. A trainer comes with an agenda. For example, you went to nursing school, you went to medical school, we started with anatomy, we went to other classes, and then we ended up with a certificate. So basically, as an emotional success coach, I come into your life not with an agenda, I come with curiosity. You come with the agenda, you come with the feelings. I come with curiosity to ask you the questions about why. Why are you feeling this way? And as we go down the train of thought, then I help you uncover the pain that you're feeling. And that leads to greater freedom for the clients, as opposed to me saying, this is my agenda, this is what we're going to talk about. So that's the difference between a coach and
a trainer. I love that distinction because I really honestly tend to lump the two together. Right. How do your clients end up in your office?
Well, right now, because of the coronavirus, we're not in the office. But a lot of times they reach out to me on social media, and then we have a conversation. Typically what we do is we book a free strategy call. And then after that, we decide, how we want things to look. And so, yes, they usually find me through social media.
Do you usually message or Zoom, virtual meetings or anything like that?
Typically through Zoom. So I go to a lot of network meetings. I'm very active on social media. And I, as a coach, when you're coming to somebody's life, it is really them that have to reach out to you. It cannot be a relationship that is forced. So, we simply have a conversation. There's that initial connection. And then we have a conversation, and then we decide, is this a good fit? Because I'm coming to your life, and I may, with the questions I ask you, I may take you to places where you have really hidden those places, and maybe places of pain, especially when we're talking about emotions, because your emotions direct your behavior.
Okay.
So a lot of times, yes, they connect to me, and then we kind of nurture that relationship, and we decide when we should start. But it's always up to that person.
Gotcha. So I want to jump into the nitty gritty because we're talking about 2020. 2020. Tell me what you think is the biggest challenge to emotional wellness, or some of the biggest challenges, because there may be many, to emotional wellness in 2020 from your perspective as somebody who is an emotional success coach.
I think 2020 is an amazing year.
Oh,
know why?
Amazing.
We've had the opportunity to stop.
Oh.
To pause.
Pause.
Take a pause. Yeah.
A
Okay.
lot of times we're just on autopilot. We're just going and going and going and going. Especially women, especially Black women, especially women who have children. You wake up in the morning and you just say, you may not be feeling well or what have you, but you push that down. Push that down. Especially professional women, especially
Mhm.
physicians. We push it down because we don't have time for that. We don't have time for emotions. We push, push, push. So 2020 has uncovered some of the things that we need to deal with. So because of that, I think 2020 is a fantastic year.
You might be the only person that I
Yeah.
have heard say that. But I love your explanation for it. I love that perspective. I have to admit, there are some times during this whole thing since about February, March, when I've been like, you know what? There are some blessings here. I have a little bit more time to see my family because my kids are home, virtually. I can put a pause on things and really reflect on what is important and what is not. Because there's so many things that when we're in the rat race, oh, this is so important. Oh, we got to do this. And when you really look back, it's not that important. It'll be there. It's fine. So in that regard, I have found 2020 to be good because it has made us reflect. But Dr. Omerine, talk to me about what some of your clients are saying are their challenges in 2020.
The biggest challenge is that they feel trapped.
Mm.
Feel trapped. They feel trapped. I have one of my clients who, she has an autoimmune, disease, and unfortunately, she can't see her family. She can't connect with them, her grandchildren and her children, the way she would want to. So that outlet of being able to just leave and go, it's not there. So I think the biggest challenge is, again, because we're always going, and a lot of times we're going because we don't want to really acknowledge what we feel inside.
Right.
We don't want to acknowledge it. We just want to go, 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 go. So we cover it up. We cover it up with, I have to work. We cover it up with, I'm so busy. We cover it up with all of that. But for her, she felt trapped. But when she felt trapped, then she started really digging into, okay, why do I feel this way? Why do I feel this way? And then we uncovered, there was a lot of childhood trauma in
Mm.
her. And so that's why I say 2020. I read a quote somewhere, but it was a quote that kind of stopped me in my tracks. It said, and I can't remember who quoted it, it said, difficult roads often lead to beautiful destinations.
There we go. There we
Difficult
go. I
roads
love it.
usually often lead to beautiful destinations. So this is the year to, dig in
Yeah.
and
Yes.
uncover.
And there's all this time that people have on their hands for that reflection. For some people, that's a good thing. For other people, like the client you're mentioning, it may be painful because there's a lot to uncover that when we're kind of keeping ourselves busy, we don't have to. So it sounds like there's a lot of work that people have to do in this time when they have all this time to themselves at home.
Right. And pain is good because pain is a signal. It's a signal that there's something not right and let's go and figure it out.
Right.
So I think that the pain that people are feeling right now, if you could look at it as a signal and as an opportunity to just uncover what you need to uncover in your life, then you will come out even better.
I could agree. I could agree.
Hi, I'm Dr. Anwar Osborne. There's been some confusion lately about wearing masks, and I want to give you the facts. Masks are like your drawers. Follow drawers rules. Rule number 1, don't let anything hang out. Nothing should be peeking out of your drawers ever. None of this. None of this. You can't bird box the Rona. Rule number 2, don't adjust in public. Would you really dig deep to pick out a wedgie? No. Don't adjust them in public with your hands. Your hands carry germs. Wash those nasty things before you put your mask on and before you take it off. Rule number 3, keep them off the table. When you go to a restaurant, would you just casually toss your dirty drawers on the table? I don't need your Fruit of the Looms next to my guacamole. No bueno. Rule number 4, wash them or be nasty. If your mask has more stains on it than the Tupperware you use to store your tomato sauce, you got problems. If it has holes in it, trash it. Wash your mask. Rule number 5, don't swap them. Don't share them with your friends. Hey bro, can I borrow your boxes real quick to just run in that store over there? I mean, for real, remember the rules. Don't let anything hang out. Don't adjust anything in public. Keep them off the table. Wash them or be nasty. And don't swap them. Most importantly, wear them. Now you know. Don't forget it.
Agree. You know, I want to know if there are particular, I don't want to say illnesses, but what are you seeing more of these days in your practice in terms of mental health? I've spoken to some psychiatrists, some psychologists who say they are seeing a lot more depression, a lot more anxiety. I want to know what you're seeing in your practice, because you have a family medicine practice, but you have a concierge practice that's kind of unique and specialized too. So what are you seeing?
So, so let me just talk about what a concierge practice is. A concierge practice is, usually in the regular family medicine practice, I would see patients for, I would be scheduled for 15 minutes at a time. And so, and that 15 minutes, can be 5 minutes. In my concierge practice, I have a set number of people. It's a membership-based practice. So, for example, I saw a patient last week and our visit was 90 minutes.
Oh,
He came for one thing, and by the time we unpeeled the layers of why and why and why and why and why to really get to the root of it, because my practice is based on healing you from the inside out as opposed to throwing a medicine on you. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not a witch doctor, okay? I still prescribe medication, but I'm really focused on getting why. So that being said, I'm seeing a lot of anxiety, a lot of anxiety, a lot
a
of
lot of
anxiety,
anxiety. I can
a
imagine.
lot of anxiety, a lot of anxiety.
What about psychiatry and psychologists? Do you work in conjunction with them?
I do, because it's very important to know when this is not in your area of influence or your area of education anymore. The funny thing about depression and anxiety is that most of the time it's managed. The first line people are the family medicine doctors like myself. Though we need to know when to refer to a psychiatrist, when you say, okay, you know what, and I'm very upfront with my patient. I say, you know what, at this point, I want to put you here to this, psychiatrist. And then I work in conjunction with therapists as well. Now, as an emotional success coach, I do a few things with them, but I really, really believe in a team aspect. In my concierge practice, I have a personal trainer, I have a nutritionist, I have all these people so that we have a kind of a team approach, almost like the medical home that we know about in that we learned about in medical school, the medical home, so that you have all your needs met and we can really, really address you, because you're not one-dimensional, you're multidimensional.
Of course.
All right. So when you're talking about the clients that you're seeing in the concierge-based practice, how do you go along? Like, how do you actually, I don't want to say recruit patients, but how do these patients opt into that side of your practice?
Well, you have to be visible. It's part of also being a businesswoman, right? You have to be visible. So
Sure.
you have to network, like I'm networking with you right now.
Mhm.
And you may not become a patient, but you may say, oh, wow, I know somebody who might be a great fit for
Right.
you. So it's networking. It's, it's a lot of grassroots networking, getting to know people, not necessarily because you want them to become your client, but just getting them to know, like, trust you, being visible. It's also being visible on social media. It's being visible at networking events in person and also virtually. And then there's good old Google advertisement and Facebook ads and things like that. But at the end of the day, when somebody actually consents to be your patient, that person has to know, like, and trust you. So I really like to have patient referrals, because that to me is the biggest gift, for a patient to say, wow, you know what, I like my doctor, you should see my doctor. That's where I get a lot of my referrals from my patients.
Gotcha. I have a question. So we're talking about 2020. We're talking about challenges. We're hearing a great perspective from you that it's not always challenging. Sometimes it's a good thing. One challenge that I have noticed when it comes to mental and emotional wellness are the cultural barriers. And we've talked about this a little bit before. The cultural barriers that, let's just say it, we folks, people of a darker hue, and I don't think it's unique to the Black community, but certainly within our community, certainly within African communities, people are not accustomed to seeking mental health help. They think that really it's a taboo. You tell people all your business. I want to see how you would address that.
So, again, it's a journey. I tell my patients we go on a journey together and we have different stops. Okay. Now, I may assess you and I may conclude that, the stop we need to go to is depression. But if you're not ready, we can't have a conversation. And you're right, especially in the Christian community, the Black community, the African community. So basically, what I do is I focus on getting to know them, getting to know what their values are, getting to know what is important to them. And then if I really think that it is something that needs to be brought up, I bring it up really briefly, depending on the kind of relationship that I have with them.
Mhm.
So it really starts with the relationship. I'm not going to meet you the first day and say, you know what, I think you're depressed. We should do all that stuff.
Right, right.
I would say, you know what, let's get to know each other better. I may seed it a little bit and say, you know what, I don't know if I'm right, but I'm kind of concerned about, are you depressed? And then you just wait. They may say, oh, you know what, I was just asking, I was just waiting for somebody to ask me that question. Or they may say, no, I'm not. And then we back off and then we go to the next thing. So I think I'm really focused on the doctor patient relationship.
Yes.
I'm building from there. And I'm asking all my fellow doctors, please find a doctor to be your doctor.
I love that because that's actually my next question I wanted to ask. Do you think that healthcare workers, other physicians, nurses, nurse practitioners, PAs, do they have unique challenges, not just in 2020, but especially in 2020? Frontline workers. Tell me about your perceptions about that, because it sounds like you're saying, physician, heal thyself, and encouraging we in healthcare to also take better care of our emotional wellness.
Yes, yes.
So, do you think we have unique challenges?
So a month ago, a radiologist, a 38-year-old radiologist who was on call in the emergency room in a hospital in Houston, went into the bathroom and cut his carotid arteries. He was, how they found him. The ER doctor was like, oh, you know what, this backup of, the X-rays are not being read, the CT scans are not being read, and they went to find him, couldn't find him, went to the restroom, and there he was.
Oh my Lord.
Very strategically, because he knows where they are. Cut his carotid arteries and bled to death. 38 years old.
38 years old. One statistic I saw just thinking about that is that physicians, I know specifically women physicians, when they actually attempt to kill themselves, they are successful. And that makes sense, right? We know how to kill ourselves. So when it may be that we might have as many, might not have as many attempts as the general population. But when we go for it, we go for it. And I imagine that would probably extend to all healthcare workers. That's a terrible story. So it sounds like you're saying there's a lot of us in this field of medicine that are hurting, and we don't find out till we find them in the bathroom of an ER with their
emotions, and delivering everything, but they're not actually addressing any of their issues.
Exactly. 25% of physicians don't have a primary care physician.
I believe
when I see when a physician chooses to come to me, I always ask them, how do you want us to do this? Do you want to be in the driver's seat, or do you want me to be in the driver's seat? We can go either way. You can order your labs. And I'll just be your scribe, because I want them to know that, hey, we're all type A. We're all type A. We're all driven, and I just want them to get to a place where they can, trust me, and then finally get to a place where they can open up. We can do it. But the problem in the and I'm going to say this because I want more physicians to say this also.
Okay.
I see a therapist. I'm Dr. Omerine, and I see a therapist because we absorb a lot of shock. We absorb a lot of shock as physicians, especially this year. We've seen so much death.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
As Black women, as mothers, we absorb a lot of shock.
Yep.
So if more of us will come and say, hey, I have gotten help too, just like the Me Too movement.
Mhm.
I see a therapist.
Yes. No, honestly.
then it helps with this stigma. It
Yes,
helps with
because if
all
everybody's
this
doing it,
stigma.
everybody's doing
Like,
it.
it's not so
Yes.
true.
Yes. You know
Normalize
what? You really bring up a great point, Dr. Omerine. I know that within the law enforcement community, there are instances where they're mandated to get certain types of therapy. I wonder if that should be the standard within the medical community because of what, as you referenced, we see all the time. And also because not only is there stigma, but I think that if somebody's really facing some mental health challenges, they might lose their job, or they may fear that they'll lose their job, because there are
Yes.
some questions when you recertify for your license where you have to answer about that.
Yes.
So
And
what
that's
is-
the problem. Why do we have to answer those questions? I read somewhere that 36 state boards say that you you have to answer those questions.
Yeah.
That's the problem. That's the
Right.
problem. Because a physician, you go through, how many years did it take us to get to where we are?
A lot.
Over 20 years.
A whole
I
lot.
wanted to be. I decided to become a physician when I was 13. So so fighting for this all my life. Where is the connection between somebody wanting to kill themselves and somebody spending over half of their life earning less than their peers? We have a problem. We
Right.
have a problem.
Right.
And the more, I mean, I think that clause needs to be taken off from the state boards. And I think that wellness, I don't think it should be mandatory, but I think that more physicians need to put themselves out there as the physician's doctor, because there's some things that only us can really understand and get it.
I agree.
And I think that we should have wellness programs in every single place, every single. I mean, so many residents are depressed.
Oh yeah.
All the hazing that happens in residence.
Yes. Yes. Davida, would you say, I mean, you're coming from a nursing perspective, would you say it's the same sort of thing where it's taboo to seek within the nursing profession, taboo to seek mental health care? Do you have some sort of place on your recertification where you have to state whether you've been hospitalized or treated for mental illness like we do?
Yes, you
You
do. Also, I wouldn't say that it's more taboo for nurses to come out and say that they're actually seeking mental health resources. I think it's more, especially in the ER, I will say, you're kind of looked down upon if you're not able to cope well when you have a trauma and you have to go to another patient. It's like, okay, you had that, like, it's normalized. You're supposed to just suppress your feelings about whatever is going on and move forward. Otherwise, if they're saying, you can't handle it, you need to go to another area of nursing. Or like, why is it affecting you to the point where you can't like move forward and do what you're getting paid to do?
Right.
So even when I'm thinking back on like my worst traumas, it's been situations like, okay, well, it's been a while, like you're getting to the next trauma. Like I need you to basically suck it up.
Absolutely.
So I do think that I think the majority of the people that I work with, either they have in the past seen a mental health specialist or they're actively seeking mental health specialists, especially like with coronavirus and everything that's been going on. Like this is unheard of. Like the way that, like you've seen death, okay? You see death all the time, especially the emergency department.
Right.
But the way that we're seeing people die,
it's different. It's different. It's definitely different. It's different. And Dr. Omerine, I think that there's two competing interests here, because on one level, you talk about how, you spend all of your life, you're training to be in the medical field, to be a physician specifically, but at the same time, making less money a lot of times. And so that's instilled in you, this hard work ethic, but then you also embedded in that many, many year sacrifice is a notion that you are supposed to, like Davida was saying, suck it up, keep a stiff upper lip. That's also what we're trained to do.
right?
We're trained to suppress our emotions. If you show this, what is your patient going to feel?
Yes.
If you show weakness, which I don't even know why it should be considered as weakness if you show humanity, right? Emotion. Then how is that going to affect your patient? How do we take that narrative and kind of mitigate it so that we can be better emotionally?
I really think that we need to come to a place where we say that there's a time for everything. I feel sad for some physicians because if you're married to a non-physician, you really have no outlet.
Mm,
A lot of times you have no outlet because you can't understand. Like, oh, you should be lucky, you should be happy. You're a doctor, you're put on this pedestal, which is a great pedestal. We thank God. But I think that instead of saying, tough it up, we can just say, you know what, there is a time for everything. At work, you know, you deal with this, you deal with that, you deal with it, you can have your work, ethic and being strong for the patient and that type of thing and having that strong face because you do need that. You can't break down in the middle of a shift. You do need that. But we also have to teach that, okay, you know what, when you leave that environment, let's find out an outlet for you.
Right.
And let's see how, hey, let's talk. Let's just talk.
absolutely.
Let's talk
Absolutely.
out of that.
Right.
Yes. A lot of people don't have that outlet to talk. So, there are a lot of physicians, a lot of people, in the healthcare field that don't have families. Even if they do have families, they're not able to talk about the kind of things that they experience. Like you said, it's very difficult if you're, in a one physician household or one healthcare person household. Other people don't want to hear some of your stories. I mean, people hate to hear my stories. They're like, oh gosh, you're going to tell us another story from the ER.
I love my stories. I will tell
They
you.
like to hear it when they're salacious, but they don't like to hear it when it's kind of gross. If it's not shocking enough to shock me or shock you, a lot of my family doesn't want to hear it.
Yeah.
And the ones that I want to talk about are the ones that shock me.
Yeah.
Right?
Right. And the other thing too is if when you are the physician in your family, you are a little, one of the authority leaders in your family.
Sure.
So not only are you carrying, you're carrying your family on your back, and then you go to work and you carry work on your back too.
Sure.
So then there's this, I have this image in my head of Superwoman, where you're Superwoman everywhere. But at some point, Superwoman and Superman need to put that kick down and say, okay, you know what, let me rest.
Right.
So I can so I can stop, functioning out of empty. And that is where the breaking point is. It is so sad. Plastic surgeon killed herself last year.
I know.
A psychiatrist jumped off the roof. During this pandemic, a psychiatrist jumped off the roof during this pandemic a couple of months ago. How did they get to that point? This is your little girl dream or your little boy dream. How do you get to the point where you're like, oh my God, I cannot take this? It's because there's no outlet. And you're just Superwoman or Superman, and you can't put your kid down.
Right. No one to save the hero. No one to save the hero.
But
what should we be looking for in our loved ones or even in ourselves as signs that we probably need to seek help?
I think that the biggest thing that we can do for ourselves is to be more self-aware. Because I can tell you, and I think the first thing is to be more self-aware. The second thing is to have conversations like this where we say, I saw a therapist. Because if I say I saw a therapist, you'll be like, you know what I saw? I want to see one too. And then that takes away the stigma, that helps you say, you know what, I can be vulnerable too. I can be vulnerable too. But we need more self-awareness. And I think that I love the book, The Miracle Morning. I recommend all physicians to read.
What is it called?
It's called The Miracle Morning.
The Miracle Morning.
Right beside her.
Okay. Tell me a little bit about that.
So it talks about the lifesavers. Lifesavers are things that you can do in the morning to help you get a great start to your day. So S stands for silence. You can do, of course, we're physicians. Sometimes we want to say, okay, what is the formula? And let me do the formula the way it is.
Do it. Just tell me what I got to do and let's get through it. Yep.
No. So lifesavers, S stands for silence. A stands for affirmations. V stands for visualizing what you want your life to do. A lot of times with my patients, I ask them, I say, okay, you know what? Let's just take a step back. And let's just imagine that your fairy godmother just did this and changed everything in your life. What do you want in your life? So that's visualization, kind of what you want your perfect day to look like. Basically, what I'm doing is I'm just making you more aware of yourself. And then E stands for exercise, R stands for reading, and then S stands for scribing, kind of journal. So his recommendation is that you do one, you can do one of them in the morning. Of course, he has a formula, do 5 minutes of this and 5 minutes of that, or 5 minutes of this. But I always say, you know what? Let's just start with one.
Sure.
Silence, so that you can, maybe be more just aware of all the thoughts that are running through your brain in the morning. Because a lot of times what we do is we just jump up and go. I have to be at work at 6, jump up and go.
Yeah. It's always a rat race. Davita, what other questions do you have for our lovely guest?
Really, it wasn't a question. I know that earlier you were saying what one of your patients, she has an autoimmune disease, and so she would be considered high risk considering the whole pandemic. My dad had open heart surgery, and with other comorbidities, he's considered high risk too. And I just like the touch bases, you said that before, anxiety was something that has been more prevalent with your patients now, depression, of course. So what would you what would you recommend for me to either trying to impart on him, or just like for my mom, for things that these conversations that they can have to make sure that even though he's not able to do certain things outside of the home or whatever, that he's still being more aware of his mental health?
Just talk to him. Just talk to him. A lot of times I have to pull myself back to prescribe. I'm like, do this, do that, do this. Make sure you do this, make sure you do that. And a
Right.
lot of times what that happens is it builds objections in the person's mind. Who wants to be told what to do? Nobody. Even my 2-year-old doesn't want. If he doesn't want to eat food, I cannot force that last spoon of oatmeal into his mouth. So, so I would just connect, just talk to him, just talk to him. It is amazing. I read this book by John Maxwell. It says, many communicate, few connect.
Mm.
It's amazing how when you just sit down with someone and you just listen to them, what they need will be revealed.
Right.
So I would say just talk with them. Talk with them, ask questions. Say, how are you doing? Oh, just how are you doing? How do you feel about that? How do you feel about it? Just talk with them. And what you need to do for him will be revealed. Because if you go and you give him a schedule of what he should be doing and recommend that he see this person and that person or exercise, he's going to resist you.
Of course.
Especially since you're a nurse and his daughter's like, wait, why are you telling me all these things?
Right.
You will listen to another nurse.
Right.
Right. But not not it's so true. It's so true. When they need to get some medical advice or validation, all of a sudden you're the nurse or you're the doctor in the family.
Right.
But then somehow swiftly they'll remember that you were just their daughter. Oh, I remember changing your diapers. So all of a sudden
Exactly.
you don't become the expert, especially if you're telling them something that they may not want to do, like you said,
Right.
Dr. Omerine. Dr. Omerine, I feel like you've dropped so many pearls on us. I really, truly appreciate you coming here. I can honestly say that you are the only person who has put a very positive spin on 2020. The show is called Challenges to 2020, but I think it's very important that we look at the silver linings, and you definitely brought that today. So I appreciate you. I want to know if there's any last words that you have for our viewers out there on staying mentally and emotionally well in 2020.
Well, I'll take a few minutes and tell you a story. By the time my grandmother was 21, she was left, she was left pregnant, homeless, with 4 kids. And this is because she was born in a time when women could not inherit, land. And so when her husband was murdered, she could not inherit his land. And so when I was 13, based on her experiences, she told me something. And that's where my mantra, thrive regardless, comes from. My grandmother said, and it's an African proverb, which you may know, and it says, no matter the economy of the jungle, the lion will never stoop and eat grass. And it doesn't do that because it doesn't occur to him. It's like, I'm not going to see a bark and start chewing on it. I want to look for my next gazelle.
Exactly.
So look for your next gazelle. Look for your next gazelle. And there's a lioness in each and every one of us.
Amen.
And we shouldn't stoop and try to eat grass just because we're in bad circumstances. this 2020 shall pass and just thrive regardless, just
That's
like the
right.
lion.
Thrive regardless. Find those bells. I love it. I love it. We will remind our viewers once again, thrive regardless. We appreciate you, Dr. Omerine. Your smile itself is enough to light up my emotional wellness for the rest of the day. and I feel like I've learned a lot from you as a fellow physician, as a fellow Black woman. I appreciate you, and I hope that you'll join us again as a guest. Thank you so much for coming.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And very nice meeting both of you.
Nice meeting you.
Nice
too.
meeting you too. We'll see you next time.
Okay, bye.
Well, that completes another episode of Are We Okay? When Docs Talks series on mental health with Dr. Omerine Assay. Thank you so much for joining us. We want you all to remember that as challenging as 2020 is, 2020 can be okay, and we're going to be okay. Have a wonderful Thanksgiving, and we'll see you next time.